We're going to be playing around today with, today we're going to be working with Arkenforge Master's Toolkit and specifically the cartographer tool in it to take a map from another existing source, something that you own, perhaps a campaign that you're going to run or something like that, and you want to take that map out and either get it in digital form if it isn't already, or if it is in digital form and you just don't like the look of it, or it's not bad, but you really want it to pop. So you take that existing artwork, and I'll show you how to get it into Arkenforge, and from there show you some of the tools of Arkenforge and creating the map on top of that existing source. Literally on top of it, and as I'm going to show you. Now, just before we start, Arkenforge is just a product that I found. I like it. That's why I'm using it. It seems to be one of the better ways to make maps. It allows you exporting to different formats for different virtual tabletops. Has a lot of cool features, including being able to use dynamic lighting. But to be clear, I just purchased it on my own. They didn't give me a copy. They're not paying for this. This is not paid promotion in any way, shape, or form. This is just me using Arkenforge and showing you some of the stuff on how to use it. So I will be keeping an eye on chat for all 0 people I think that are in here right now. Possibly one other person, but not. It's when you're testing your stream, sometimes it's hard to tell. So I got Arkenforge up in the background right now. Not actually going to start with that, because what we want to do is when we are using a different source, you have to prep it to make sure that it goes into the new source that you're going to use. And that's regardless of whether you're using Arkenforge or anything else. That's just a normal thing to do. So I'm going to show you how to prep it specifically for Arkenforge. So because of that, I actually have, this would help if I was on my live stream, I actually have Photoshop up in the background. So we're going to go ahead and go to that. And I use Photoshop. You can use whatever tool you're used to. The most important thing that you're going to need here is simply 2 things. You want to change the number of pixels per inch, and you want to be able to save it as a JPEG. So almost any program out there that does even medium weight photo editing should be able to do this. I believe GIMP is one of the ones that's out there that's really good. Good alternative to Photoshop. Photoshop can be pricey, so definitely you want to look into some of the free alternatives in almost every case. I just happen to have Photoshop for reasons in the past that I'd had, so since I already have it, I'm going to go ahead and use it. Once you get it in here, I use the advantage with Photoshop that if this is starting with digital already. So I did a screenshot of it with Windows. Very useful to do on Windows 10. You do Windows key Shift S. Just one at a time, keeping the Windows key, hold down Shift, tap S, and you can get a screenshot of anything on the screen. So I was able to pull that, and as soon as I launch Photoshop, it sees that I have something on the clipboard. So regardless of how you get on the clipboard, it still works the same way. And then so I can get Photoshop to create a file that is the same size of what my clipboard is. So that's what I did. I'm zoomed in right now. And that allows me now to only have this as big as what I actually wanted. Now, trouble is that with Photoshop, it's going to default to 72 pixels per inch, which is pretty common, but it's not what Arkenforge uses. Again, Arkenforge uses 256 pixels per inch. Not again, first time I said that. I am a dopey man. So how do we change it? Real simple. Don't want to go too much further. You just go down to image in Photoshop. Again, in other software packages it will be different. Image size, and then you just have a pixels per inch. And you can see this is already a pretty large image. I used it on my ultra wide monitor. I got as big as I could so that I could have, you know, like as detailed as possible for the original copy that I have. So I'm going to change this to 256. This is going to make this a pretty massive file. That may or may not be a problem with Arkenforge. We're going to find out. Last time I did this, seemed to work okay. The important thing, though, is regardless of the size of this file, you're only going to use it temporarily in Arkenforge. Once you build your map in Arkenforge, this is just a template that you're going to build on top of. So once you're done in Arkenforge, you delete this out, and it keeps Arkenforge running nice and smooth if this so happens to slow it down. And Arkenforge, trust me, seems to be able to handle a lot from what I've seen. They've got an unlimited map size, and they load objects in. So, but your mileage will vary depending on the strength of your system and how many objects you load into it. But anyway, just hit OK. It's going to make it much bigger. So much bigger that the zoom that I'm at, you know, zoomed in quite a bit there. So that's fine. Just going to save it out here. Again, I'm just going to save it as JPEG. And I'm just going to, I'll just save it right here so that I don't have anything, don't have to go through any folders. Actually, that's nice because that's a subwindow that's not even visible, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to save it where I normally do. I have a D&D folder set aside that Arkenforge knows to look into. It's one of the favorites already. So I'm just going to call this the sewers. And when I save this, you can't see this because you can only see the main Photoshop screen right now. Photoshop and many of the other programs, because JPEG is a compressible format. It can compress it, but you can lose quality when you compress it. I'm going to keep it at the maximum size. I'm not worried about file size here. It's temporary in here. I made it big to begin with to have quality, so it doesn't make sense to lose that quality again by compressing it. So that gives us what I need to bring into Arkenforge. So another word that I need to stop saying so often. So let's move over to Arkenforge. So I've created a new blank map. I've done nothing with it. So we're going to open the map. Nice and blank. First thing I need to do is to get in my template. Now the thing with this template though is I'm going to be putting other objects over it and terrain over it and stuff like that, and I don't want to move it. When I select those things, I don't want to accidentally select that map. And the easiest way I found is over here on the right hand side, you can see that there are some numbers over on the far right, and currently there's a 0. Oh, you can see my mouse as well, so that's perfect. 0 is where we're starting at. And these numbers, so far as you can see, don't seem to have a limit either way, but you don't need to use too many of them. But essentially those numbers are going to be, think of them as floors or levels. So if you had a map that had multiple levels of terrain, or on the side of the mountain and cliffs and up and down and riverbeds, or just the floors of a house, that's what these levels are. And once you're currently working on a level, you're only going to select and move things on that level that I'm aware of. There might be a special key to press to select things on other levels. I'm just not aware of it right now. So the easiest thing is to go down one level. And we'll be able to see the things on the level below when we're working on a level above. So that's where I want to import in my map. Now we got to get our map in here. So I actually have to leave out of the cartographer tool itself, if I recall correctly. So I'm going to go back to home, and for the cartographer, bouncing back and forth, for the content library, the cartographer, I want to bring in a new map. And I kind of keep my own little map folder here. And I'm going to add new content, have it in D&D, have a whole bunch of things, go down here to my sewers JPEG, and that's what I want to open up. So that will bring in that map. Now I don't need to put in a palette. The palettes down here are where you will bring in art that you create for objects in the world, like chairs, food, and walls, all the stuff that you want, props, or even grass and ground and stuff like that you want to do on your map. You have to bring that in. Elsewise, same content import that I did here, but then you have to add it to a palette so you can use it in the cartographer. Yeah, so it's been a hot minute since I did this, so I'm just double checking. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I believe I should be good there. See, there's our palette where our objects are. Actually going to try something else here for a second. No, that did not work. So there we go. Import media. I did it the wrong way. Don't worry about the content library for the map. Import media. It's all coming back now. We'll give that a second. There we go. Okay, so I got that in there. First step. And the reason why we saved it for 256 pixels per inch is because each of these squares, as you zoom in, is supposed to be the standard 5-foot square within Dungeons and Dragons or other role-playing games, and that's where your 256 pixels are. So that's 256 by 256 square is a 5-foot square. So that's how the grid is based, and you can see the grid is pretty close. So what we want to do is we want to get it a little bit closer, and I'm going to do a little trick where we're going to scale it down first. It should come in pretty close to the scale that you need, but I want to make sure this is in the center of a square. And you do that as you move, you just hold down the control key. And that'll actually do two things. It'll either take you to the center of a square, which looks about like where we are right there, because we're about the center of that line, or about the center of that line. Or it can also snap to the edges and corners. But right now we want the center of the square. And we'll adjust as we need to from there. And the other thing I want to do here is I want to go to object manipulation and change the opacity, because I want to be able to see my grid right now. Currently, I think my grid lines, I don't have to change the opacity. Technically, I can go over to, I believe it's advanced settings, and there's the grid behind objects is currently turned on, which is why I couldn't see the grid. If I turn that on, then I can see my grid too. So I don't have to have my opacity quite as low as I've made it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scale, go back to the previous menu, I'm going to scale it up, and let's zoom in here. See here, got a bunch of squares right in the middle. That works out nicely for that map. And I have my square grid for my map making tool here within Arkenforge. And I want to make these squares match in size. So we're getting pretty close there. We're just a little off on lining them up. And since I did this just as a snapshot, they're not going to line up perfectly to begin with anyway, because my snapshot wasn't centered on their squares that well. So we're getting pretty close there. The other thing I found with some of the stuff is don't worry about it too much. I've actually found in some of the sources that I've worked with that their squares aren't super square. Like in the center of the picture that you get from them, they'll line up great. And then when you go off to the sides, they start drifting. And it's almost like they apply kind of an anamorphic filter to it where it kind of expands as it goes out to, you know, the tops and sides. Now you can see I got a pretty good lineup right here. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think my arrow key movement, even though there is a place where I can make the arrow key a bit more granular. I mean, I'm pretty good right on there right now. Not going to get a whole bunch better than that, so I'm happy with that. So let's see what it looks like on the end. See if there's kind of that anamorphic filter or not. It's not going to hurt us because that's fine. We just shift our walls. We shift our lines. It's not a big deal. This is just a template. So I'm going to bring that down to about 50%. And if I just right click, that gets rid of the connection there. So now I can right click and drag and I can check how do our outer edges look. Oh, they're still lined up real nice. This one turned out pretty good. See, you see they start to drift here. Even though they were lined up near perfect in the center, see, they started to drift. I've seen this in a whole bunch of sources. Don't know why. Don't know if it's something particular to how monitors works versus, you know, how it was originally printed. See, we're now on the far right side. They're also drifting. But in the long run, it doesn't matter. I don't care. So don't worry about it. Don't care about it. If you see that drift, don't go crazy like trying to scale it some more or trying to, like, you know, get it to work perfect. Ha! Zycia says yo. Sorry, Zycia, just saw you. But yeah, don't worry about getting it all perfect like that. You'll drive yourself crazy and it's not worth it because this whole thing's going to go away and no one will ever know that it slightly didn't line up over in one corner. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, so let's get to the meat of this. Let's get to actually building stuff. Oh, before we do that, just want to let everybody know, just for my own fun, I am wearing my Houses and Humans shirt today. So there we go. So that's what all the monsters, of course, are doing. Scaling does fix it. It's right in the center. It is fixed. Let me zoom out so I can get more towards the center. If you look at the center, it's spot on. What I believe it is I believe sometimes, you see, I mean, their grid lines, which are these partial grid lines here, is the original source here. And you can see it, that they don't meet at the corners like the grid line for Arkenforge does. It's spot on. I believe when they go to put it in print, because this was originally in print, then got digitized later, that there may be an anamorphic, I said it perfectly before, anamorphic filter that was put on it that causes the sides to change dimensions. So scaling does fix it for the most part, but it doesn't matter in the long run. So this is what we're going to work on today, and I am not going to complete it in the time that we have, but you'll at least get some idea of what this tool can do. And you know, just for fun, I think I'll start over here where it doesn't line up well, just so I can, like, make you feel better that it's okay. Walls is usually where I start, and the reason why is because walls don't cover up too much stuff, if I put the floor in here, which is fine, it will cover up what I can see. Before I even start placing anything, let me go up to level 0 so I don't actually select it. As you can see, I can't select it or move it now. But alternately, also, for those that know the tool, just real quick, you can select it and you can lock it in place. That will also, see, now I can't select it unless I hold down Shift. So it's also kind of handy. But I'm also going to get to the point where I'm going to want to lock the walls and lock other things that I'm working on here. So I don't want to accidentally select this when I'm selecting those locked items if I need to change them. So I'm going to have it on the layer below. So I'm on layer 0. We're going to work over here. We're going to start building this out, building the walls. Again, I don't want to start with the floors and covering up. Yes, we can change the opacity, but then you got to remember to go back and change the opacity again. And the nice thing about floors is they automatically lay underneath all the rest of the objects. So it's really easy to put them later because they won't cover up, the beds and the drawers and chests or whatever is in here. Chandeliers is what I think those probably are. It isn't going to cover that stuff up. All it's going to do is just lay right underneath, perfectly fine. So you might as well do the floors last. And then we'll also have some fun with doing the floors up here in the sewer area. This should be interesting because you could either do one floor and then paint, the kind of the rivery sewer stuff here. You could do that. Some of the disadvantage to that is if you're just doing one floor, you don't get that sense of height change here. So you might have to play around with that. Might do a really skinny wall. We'll figure out something. But what I would usually do to show the height change, even without a skinny wall, is I would just draw in 2 different floor tiles here. And if you got a floor tile that is, looks kind of like the bottom of sewer that you can paint some water into and probably put some dirt and other detritus in there, then that automatically gives you that kind of like, oh, okay, I get this as a walkway. Also depending again on what you choose. And I'll show you how to do partial tiles as well. So we'll get to all that. So because, we're going to compress all this, I'm probably going to end by noon today. So I got about another hour and 10 minutes or so. Since I am compressing this, we're not going to be concerned about making every room. We're going to try a little bit of everything. So let's start with walls. The nice thing about the palette is currently it's sorted in folders, and each folder has subfolders in it. So it makes it a little bit easier to find things. Also, something doesn't have to be in just that folder. In fact, if you look into structures, it also has, if I remember correctly, a walls. And then it's got all these different walls in it, which are very similar to some of the walls that you find elsewhere. Sometimes some are in one and not the other. But I usually go to this main one of walls. And we're underground here. Cobblestone might not be too bad. We've got a couple of options there, that's for sure. This greenish kind of fort wall looks interesting. That moss wall looks pretty cool. We might have to lay some of that down here just to see what that looks like. That might be good for sewer. And then we've got a couple of things down here under stone as well. And again, you can make your own textures and import them in. I have some of mine that I might use later to be able to show. They got wood walls as well. This is underground, so we're not even going to use those. I think we're going to stick with the ruins. That looked kind of cool. And we got 2 different ones to choose from, so we can play around with it, depending on whether it's, a wall that is more exposed to the water versus a wall that is, interior and not exposed to anything. So Icy says, am I drinking anything? I am just drinking some tonic water, currently a bubbly. In fact, it's white peach ginger bubbly. It's actually pretty good. So, selecting the wall that I want, The easiest way to really do the wall is a repeatable. There's different ways you lay down tiles. You can lay down them as tiled. These really aren't tiles, so they aren't good for that. There's object placement, hold shift to randomize. That's really cool, but it's really for objects, not walls. Repeatable placement, which it defaults to, is the best for the walls. And line placement is great for just doing the lines, although there is circle and polygon and freeform as well. You can really play with those a lot. We've got a really nice square, you know, square sewer here, so we don't really need those other ones right now. We can play with those later. Doors can always be fun. You can either say the door's 5 foot wide, so you start right on the edge, or you can also start in the middle of the square and then, you know, for a really skinny square, you know, and start at the edge. We're gonna start with 5 foot. So since we've got this nice grid here, and since everything's nice square, again, hold down the control key. You can barely see it. There's a little square there that's going to show me where I'm starting. But notice it is snapping to center of the square, center of the line, corner of the line, depending on where I'm at. So then just click and drag, and I got a moss wall. My width, that's actually a width I use for some of my interior walls. That's probably a little small. So I'm going to right click so I stop placing, click on that, and just hit the delete key, delete it out. I want that a little bit bigger. I'm going to select my wall again. Here's where you change the width. So that was kind of convenient. This is in square width. So each square is 5 feet. So if you have half a square, it's a 2.5 foot thick wall. Super easy. I'm going to do 0.25. Actually, you know, it'd be funny. I'm just going to do 0.2 because that's 1 foot. So let's do that. And I'll start again. Control click and drag. And I hold control down the whole way because then you can see it nice. It's clicking to all the different places I click to. So you don't have to do straight line straight across, but it's good for clicking right into either a cross corner, the center of the line, or the center of a square. So that's easy. And then I'm going to I release both the mouse button and control, and then I hit them both again, come right on down. I actually probably stopped early there, but whatever. I can just do another one and just have it meet up with it. And I'll overlap it a little bit just to be safe for light reasons. Overlapping is probably a good reason, a good idea to have on a regular basis. Here we have this small opening, so I'm probably going to start, and our sewer's a little, see, I'm going to start right, could start in the middle here, right? That seems a little narrow. I think I'm just going to make my sewer wider than what they have it at. And I'm just going to start it here, and I'm just going to shift things a little bit. So that one, I did not start it with control. No control, I tell ya. And that's fine, because, I mean, it's really not all that much difference. It overlapped a little too much on this side. It's overlapping a little less there. And I'm going to shift this whole little opening up to the top of the square, basically. And so that way, I can do this with my wall. And as you can see, now, we have that opening there, which is about the same size as the opening there. I just shifted it up because my control allows me to click right into that center of that line. So I see I'll be drinking some stuff later. We'll stream later that way. That'll allow me to do that little inlet there. And the same thing up here. See, I stopped right at the edge, and then I can just pull it right up there. Come on, there we go. And boom. And you can see just drawing the walls just goes real nice and quick. You can toggle the palette on and off if it gets in your way. It's nothing major. I'm also zoomed in a little bit for how I'd normally do it. So it doesn't take all that long at all to... boy, stopped that one just a tad early, didn't I? Doesn't take long at all just to really flesh out your walls on an area. Got a secret door. I'm going to go ahead and keep that open like that because we'll play around with how to do that later if we get down to it. Essentially, we can just like put a separate wall there that we won't group with the other ones. So real quick, did some walls. I grabbed the other ruined wall so I can do the interior. I'm going to go ahead and just overlap right like that. Oh, why did I suddenly get Bob Ross just jump in my head? These happy little walls. Now what you'll notice is when you overlap that, it literally does overlap it. The nice thing though, if I right click so that I can just select these walls right here, I'm going to group these. There we go. They're grouped together. And one thing is I'm going to get rid of the drop shadow. I don't really want the drop shadow on my walls in here. It's nice sometimes. It's not nice other times. It depends. Yeah, I'll leave the drop shadow on for right now. It's useful for differentiating the walls from the floor, especially if you can use a stone floor. So I'll keep them on for right now. Also, very important, this toggle shadows must be on if you want your walls to act like walls for lighting where people can't see through them. But that's not what I really brought you in here for. What I wanted to show is, even though it's overlapping these other walls, since I want that outer moss wall to be definitely moss from anybody walking along the outside, so I want it like the the most important wall there, I just go to layering. Now layering, you have levels. Now that will move this up or down a level. So I could actually move this down to the level where our template map is. But that's not what I want here. What I want to do is I just want to move it to the bottom layer. And that will just, see, you can actually see it right over in this little left-hand corner. If you'll watch real carefully, move the palette tool out of the way, you can watch. See, there, without moss, with moss. And, you know, are your players going to see that? No, they're not. But that's fine. I mean, I know about it, and maybe some players would see it, so I'm just going to go ahead and change it. There we go. And then we can group the rest of our walls too, which is very not that secret door. We want that separate so that we can have control over him later. So we can group all these. That's the fun when you miss a click. And the cool thing about this is not only are you grouping the walls, but I'll show you. Like, I haven't grouped those ones up there yet. Contextual options, you can group them together. Now, anything that you do with these, including scaling or even changing the width, like if I decided 1 foot was enough, I want these outer walls 2 feet thick, I can change them all right now with this, since they're grouped together. But the other nice thing about it is, you know, I can select them, you know, make them, get rid of the drop shadow if I want to, compared to these other ones. But even though I've grouped those, I can easily group the other walls again with it. So I've selected those. Now I control click on these. I'm control clicking, by the way, if I didn't say it before, to select all of them. And I'm like, oh, just go here and group those. And now they're just included in the group. Be aware, though, it's not a group with another set of walls that becomes another group. It's literally those set of walls get added to that existing group. And I say that differentiating ways. If I ungroup it now, I'm going to ungroup everything, not put it back to the way it was a moment ago where I had a group of walls and I added 3 walls to it. So be aware, it just adds those 3 walls to the group. Very useful though. Okay, so I've got some base walls down here. As you can see, again, just because the grid shifted a little bit, or just because like maybe the sewers aren't exactly 10 feet wide or anything like that, doesn't matter. I got some other interior walls I could put down here, but we're going to just concentrate up here for right now. Okay, so let's talk about what you're going to do with your rooms. So you got a couple of things. One, you got doors. You know, doors, again, you want to block light. We're going to get to lighting in a little bit. That's a little bit further on. But, you know, we've got to get our doors in place. We've got to get our props in place. And our props are going to be things like the beds and the drawers, things like anything that's going to show up in the room that you want them to see. That's going to be on the floor. Then we want to get our floor in place, and then we want to get our lighting in place. And our lighting you kind of can do with your props, depending on the prop that you bring out. And I'll demonstrate it all as we get to it. So let's start with just the doors. And the same thing applies here to windows. The only real difference I'd make with windows is if you want them to see through the windows, you don't turn on the object shadows. The object shadows is the ability to see through it, as opposed to the opacity, which lets you blend stuff in. I'll show you a cool trick with that in a little bit too. So let's start. So structures is where I find a lot of this stuff. And at least for, things around a structure as opposed to props within it. Furniture is where we'll find the beds and everything. So I get this castle door, which is a nice stone door. And, it's a sewer. There's nothing wrong with a wood door down a sewer either. We got a couple wood doors here. We see the closed ones here. They have doorknobs. I even made the reverse of it in my own. See, mine's under objects, and I got doors. So I reversed it. I also centered mine, so I can actually probably going to go back and take my artwork and put the doorknob on both sides. Just personal thing there. But having it both ways means you can have a good double door with the doorknobs in the middle. But for our purposes, we don't need that really all that much. So we can have some stone doors if we want, but this is just a sewer. We're just going to have a basic door. Everything's top down, as you can see. So that one's not bad. I kind of like that one. It gets a little bit more depth. Also, you could. The nice thing is you can spin these and change them any direction that you want to. So because of that, you can also give the illusion of kind of a depth that is going up to a center point. So like, the north side of the room, it can almost look like the door's like leaning in this way and gives a little depth. And on the south side of the room, it's leaning in the opposite way. So you kind of get this, pinpoint above. So I kind of like that idea. We're going to put this out there. Now it defaults to just object placement. Now a couple things about object placement. One, it does the obvious of placing an object, so it's not a floor tile. It's not repeatable like the walls are. And if you hold your shift key when you do it, every time you click, it's going to do a little bit different size, angle, and color. Now, that doesn't help us too much with doors. Other than the color thing's kind of nice. But we can do that manually too if we want to. The size thing really hurts us when it comes to like certain furniture objects like doors and chairs, beds. Maybe not beds. I mean, if it might actually be useful in this one because we got so many beds. This is probably, this is in the sewers. This isn't part of a house. They didn't go to like a furniture store and buy all the same furniture. So the beds are probably going to be hodgepodge. So we'll probably use it there. But for the doors, they got to fit within the door frame. And yeah, they're going to be a little hodgepodge, but they're not going to be this massive of a difference. So we're going to just get rid of all those. We're just going to work with our one. And one thing I do about doors, just for the lighting, and I'll demonstrate this when we get to there, I do try to make sure that the door overlaps the wall a little bit. I don't want to make it like fit just perfect in there because I don't know how the program handles its lighting with edges like that. I have seen light kind of peek through a little bit in different situations where I had walls not lined up quite right or so I just overlap them. It seems to take care of it quite fine. That's a little big for what we want. Now, first of all, I'm just going to hit Control, and that's going to center it right on that line, in the center of that line. So now I just got to scale it down to where I want it. And those drop shadows are helping me see approximately where the wall is to where I got that. And there. And, from the resolution and, the size that your players are going to be looking at it, they're not going to notice the difference of anything that you see that doesn't look quite right there. It's fine. Plus, the nice thing is using the wood door here kind of helps it stick out a little bit from the wall. So it's a little bit more obvious to them that it is a door, I should say. Also, I can go in here, make sure, see, right now, they can see through it. Good thing I checked. I don't want them to see through it, so I got to click that toggle shadows. well, it's got a drop shadow on it, which seems to help it stand out too. Now, so I want that door down here. So I just select it, Control C, I Control V down here, and it puts it pretty close to where I want it. Now again, I kind of want that facing the other way. At least in this case, you might not want to. Depends on what you want to do. So select it, select the center section here. That's how you move it. Hit the Control, so it centers it on the line again. Now I want to rotate it 180 degrees. Well, that's what this rotation's for. And if you hold down Control, it pops it at 45-degree angles until you get it all the way around. And there you go. You've just very easily got that door facing the other way with very little effort at all. So, doors. Now let's do some beds, drawers, things like that. So that's usually going to be up in our furniture. You notice there's roof, roads, props. Props are all the really small things. Love that. That'll be pretty fun down here. Might have to come back for some of those. Books, braziers. There's some of your light sources. But we want furniture. It's a little further up. And we got beds. And the cool thing here is they got some beds that look nice, some beds that are literally tagged as ruined. Basic beds. Beds with, there's like one with cobwebs on it somewhere too. Yeah, there we go. Dirty bed. It's probably a good start. So not only can you use the shift when placing it to get kind of, even goblin bedding, kind of get that different color and size, but on top of that, you can also play around with, like using all these different assets so that it really looks like, hey, they just pulled these beds from everywhere. I love the leopard pillow. I use that in one of my other ones. You even got a straight old mattress just on the ground. So sure, let's just start with, let's start with the dirty bed. I love the cobweb. And I'm not going to worry about placing them in place right now. I just want to get some beds out there so that I can scale them differently, maybe change the colors, use the shift a little bit to help me with that, and then get an idea of how many beds of different types I want. So I'm just going to hold down shift and just click it a couple times. As you can see, it gives me a couple of different beds. Let's do the double looks a little big. Okay. I like the bed frame. I'm going to do that once at least, maybe twice. And then that way we can do a mattress that can go on it. See, the color got it a little bit dirtier, kind of. And then do this single bed a couple of times. Drop it out there. Don't worry that they get too big. It's okay. A ruined bed a couple of times out there. And the single bed's where we started. Okay, so we got lots of beds. Probably more than what we need. That's fine. So we're just going to start dividing them up a little bit here. Scaling them down about to where we need them. We'll fix it more later. It's just going to make it easier for us to work with some of these being so big and in the way. There we go. So now actually see with what we're working with. Okay, I really like my bed frames. I think that's kind of a nice idea for down here in the sewer. So we're going to start with that. Take one of these down here and let's get it down this corner. No one wants to be in the corner. No one puts baby in the corner. I mean, Zysia is not on here talking, so I might as well. Sorry, Zysia. Pronounce that right. He's not on here talking, so I might as well do the dad jokes for him. I just unmuted the Discord so he could actually hear me there if he wanted to. Speaking of, just because I had an audio problem the other day, I just want to triple check my audio. It's been fine so far. But after I did an hour-long video the other day with absolutely zero audio. Oh, it's perfect. Good. close back out of that. Okay, so we've got our bed frame there. That looks about the right size for what I want. I probably want this guy a little dirtier, but we'll worry about that later. Oops. Let's get just the, there we go, just the mattress. And the cool thing is that since these are two separate things, two separate objects that we're placing, we get to have the fun where like, well, the mattress isn't on straight. So color, hue, saturation, or color brightness, saturation is really what they do. And then you got hue as well. So you got hue's your color. So I'm kind of redundant there, I guess. And opacity. You got all four of those you can play with. So you can take your brightness. That's a really dirty mattress. I was just a little too far there. That was from Aaron Click. So yeah, all you got to do is drop your brightness down, and all of a sudden you got this gray, dingy mattress. Super easy. Nice way to add a little bit of atmosphere to what you're doing. And if somebody sees a mattress like that in a sewer type area, a little tilt there to the bed, then that your players are able to infer some things from that. Kind of sets the tone. There we go. I guess I like the idea of it actually rotated the other way. There we go. And again, I can just play around with this a little bit. Let's bring the brightness down a little bit. And it's cool. Hey, this is a wet area. So why don't we give it a little bit of green tint? Oh, it's not catching it too much. There's so much white in it. I was hoping that would give us a little more green, but I guess not. Oh, maybe if I go the other way. There we go. A little green tint. That one's moldy and dingy. And of course, if I decrease the brightness, increase the darkness, a little bit of that color might come out a little bit more. All right, and this is all we're going to do. We're just going to rotate them around, scale them down. They already changed color a little bit for us, so I mean that seems pretty good. Bring one of these down here. Not holding down control because I don't want it a perfect rotation. And yeah, they repeat, but I mean, players aren't going to care about that. They're going to come into this room and they're going to see, oh, there's not another bed there. They're going to come into this room and they're going to see, different beds. They're not going to worry about that the texture for this bed suspiciously is very close to the texture of this one. Yeah, of course it is. They've been playing video games. They know textures get reused. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's not taking me all that long. And I'm just grabbing beds, putting them where I want, scale. And you actually put together a room in a fairly reasonable amount of time. There, and got a couple extra beds. So we select those. Careful not to select my walls. Good. And delete. Got our beds. Easy enough. So around here we got some, these could be chests, these could be drawers. Your source material may say what they are. Could be anything you want. You can change it from your source material. That's half the fun. So let's take a look at benches first. That's more like desk type stuff. Yeah, or sitting benches actually. Some cabinets. That's a nice little cabinet. So we'll Shift click 2 of those in there. Oh, see, look how nice red it gets when they change it. Carpets. There's no carpets down here. We don't have to worry about that. We could put chairs if we want. Not as concerned about it right now. Desk. It's more of a bar than a desk, so the drawer is a nice one. It's a little bit different than what we got right now, so we'll shift click a couple of those down. Those scales are going to go way down. And that one didn't change the color very much, so we're going to change the color. There we go. This is a nice cherry wood. And also the other place, there's some tables too, because some of these could be side tables, right? So that's one of the ways you can do it. But one of the things that you want to look into is containers. Storage, I think it's under. There we go, storage. So there's your barrels, your buckets, but our chests. So, because some of these are probably some chests. So we'll take a chest and we'll shift click him. And I like this one with the band, you know, and this one's the double band. And we'll probably have enough. So that one's scaled way too big. Looks like he definitely has a front, so bring him right down here. Rotate that. Bring down the scale. Bring it up just a tad. And you see, you just decide what you want, where you want to put it, make a couple changes to it. I mean, when you got 4 different changes for how it looks color-wise, color and brightness-wise, right? And then add on to that, you know, your scale and your rotation, you really get to have fun setting the mood here. You know, like, are you setting the mood for like orderly, you know, very structured type room that you might find in, you know, a mansion or something like that? Or is this going to be, you know, more of like what we're doing here? This is the middle of the sewers, and they grabbed whatever they could. They needed to like get some people, you know, situated down here, and so they grabbed whatever they could and just kind of threw it in place. Which way's front? That is, there we go. I mean, I want to talk about disorganization. Put the front of the chest to the back. And I could go back to, you know, like each of my different places that I had before, but sometimes it's just easier, you know, Control C, Control V, and then I can like just, you know, bring the brightness back down, change the hue a little bit more. If I wanted more of a birch wood, go a little bit more to the side. And you know, I can put these right next to each other, change the scale a little bit, and your player, when they're coming in here, are not even going to realize that those are the same. They're just not going to care. So it makes it very easy to quickly populate this stuff. So give it a little bit birchwood look, a little green wood there, yeah. Rotate it, scale it. Drop it in place. There we go. And already we have this room mostly done. Now, sure, there's other things you can put in. You really want to get fun. You can get down here and you can be like, okay, so let's look at props. And let's get some books. And we just plop. Scattering of books. On the edge of the desk. You want to throw a candle in there. I'll throw a red candle in there for some fun. And it can be lit or not lit. You change the light properties also in that menu. I'm not going to have it lit right now because I'm going to put some chandeliers in next. So yeah, you can have fun with these props. Oh yeah, we did say we're going to have some bones somewhere, right? It's beast bones. Sure, why not? Scale that down. Get a rotation. Somebody decided to like bring these back to their room. So you can go nuts with the props like that. So yeah, some of your lighting things will be underneath props, like your candles. They have candelabras. I never pronounced that right, so sorry for anyone who just cringed on that. I believe there's another place that I want to look at for that. Lamps under structures. Nope, that's not what I want. That's the fun part of having it under multiple places, is sometimes you are missing where it went. I've seen it also called lanterns somewhere. So it doesn't look like what I'm looking for is under there. So let's close that down. Storage, no. Spider webs. I even have animated stuff. So you can put animated spider webs in this. Depending on virtual tabletop that you use. And you can use, actually, this tool, Arkenforge, can be your virtual tabletop as well. They have a lot of tools for that. But depending on the virtual tabletop you use, depends on whether you can actually see or use the animation or not. Yeah, it's not lamps. Sorry, check there. There's our candles. It's all under props. Furniture. Light. That's what I was looking for. Just light. Furniture. Light. So that's more of a chandelier than I would have expected in a place like this. But I'm still going to use it here because I want to show you a neat thing to do with it. Also, we're at the point where we don't need to see the map under here anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our floor first, and I'm going to come back and really show you a neat thing to do with the chandelier, because it'll be neat to see it projected against the floor. So right over furniture is our floor, stone tile. This straight up tiles. In fact, I made a similar one. I actually made a marble tile with light or grade grout on it. I literally just found a picture of it online and made some modifications, and it was good to bring in. But back to the normal floors. Cobblestone, yeah, maybe. Certainly that was what we're going to use for our walkways out there. Need a good stone. Which marble isn't quite what we want either. So we'll stick with cobblestone for now. I think I'm going to import something that's a little bit better for just like hewn stone or something like that. So I like this city tile because it's dirty. Seems like that'll be right. And you're just going to see how nice and easy this is. It's already defaulted to tile placement in the special placement down here, which we will probably get to here in just a little bit when we do the sewers, because the sewers are next, and we're going to finish on the sewers. And then the opacity is set to currently 100% opaque. Drag, and done. Those are some big cobblestones. That's a lot bigger than I thought. Not sure I like that anymore. Let's see. Let me check this one. That's not too bad. It's not great, but it's not too bad. Now notice, some of our beds are sticking out a little bit better than others because some of them have drop shadow on and some of them do not. So you pretty much want your drop shadow on for almost all of your objects so that they can, stand out. Definitely the bed here needs it. it stands out a little bit better. And of course, I can just go through and anything that I notice doesn't really have a drop. That seems like it has a drop shot. It's just pointing the other way. So I don't need that one. That there needs it. Not the mattress. I don't want to drop shadow the mattress onto the frame. Okay. Oop, one last chest. There we go. So that's our floor. And again, if you still needed to see something for your map, you can toggle the opacity down so that you can see right through it, see where, you know, our chandeliers are supposed to be. But it's fine the way it is. So that'll be our floor for right now. I'm happy with it. If you go and you put, you know, any new, if you put a water bucket down here, any new objects just automatically go on top of the floor. So it makes it real easy to do stuff like that. Also, I want to point out real quickly, one thing that, depending on, you know, how you like to play it, having these grid lines here can, you know, take away from a little bit of the immersiveness of it, because see, the grid lines just go right over the beds. So if you just go to your palette tool or your toolbox over here, the palette tool is the top one, go to your settings, go to advanced, and then just like I turned it off before, we're going to turn back on that the grid is behind the objects, not the floor, the objects. So you still have your grid on the floor. See it? Now those beds and everything, the drop shadow is one part of it. Turning off that grid and putting it behind the objects is the second part of it. That really makes those objects pop out of your map. So it's very easy for your players to see, you know, where everything is and what it is. See, I'm just toggling, even the walls here just looks so much nicer when you make sure that that grid is behind objects. So I recommend all the time using. You can actually turn the grid completely off as well if you want that level of immersion. So last thing that I wanted to do in this room was that chandelier, which I promised I wanted to show you something cool about it, but I also want to show you what the lighting does. So we're going to start with a chandelier, which is under light. And again, this is way, way fancier than what would probably be in this room, but we're going to go ahead and use it anyway, just so I can show you something interesting. So plop it down. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to center it by going to the move, holding down Control, then releasing my mouse, then releasing Control. So it centers it. And then I'm going to scale this thing up. Right about there looks good. No, okay. There would be people that I could say their name starts with a V and they're part of a popular D&D series that would love chandeliers this big and be able to drop on people. But that's not why I made it that big. What I'm going to do here is change the visual settings of it. I want to change it so it's dark, right? Just get it real nice and dark like that. And then I'm going to change the opacity down so it's real faint. Now, there's two things happening here. You see part of it, I'm like pointing to it like you can see where my hand's pointing to. You can see part of it is getting real faint and dark as I move it. And there's another part that even if I go down to like almost zero opacity, there's a darker part there. That's the drop shadow. So if you go to lighting and turn off that drop shadow, you want to do that for this trick to work. Then go back and set your opacity so it's just like that. It's probably fine, at least for what we're going with is currently daylight. So right there's fine. And see, maybe a little darker. Let's get it about, oops. Sometimes these controls, I'm not very good at grabbing them. Oh, somehow I just turned off my, yeah, you are floor. You go back to opaque. You are getting locked, so I don't do that again. That's the usefulness of the lock there, is you don't accidentally select the chandelier in. Okay, so why did I do that? Well, because I take another chandelier, control to get it in the right place, plop it down, and then right click so I unselect it. Now I'm probably gonna make this a little smaller like this, right? And maybe I made that a bit too big. Maybe I'm gonna do that right to here. But now I have a Shando. Where's Zycia? He'd be saying I have been drinking. I have a shadow of my chandelier. And then what we can do is select the chandelier, control click the shadow. We're going to group them together. Well, we don't want to group them yet. One important thing, don't group them yet, because you want to turn on the lighting for this one first. And the nice thing about grouping is it does allow you to do things like manipulate multiple things at once with the objects that are grouped. But if they have some settings that are different, like their lighting settings, they will still keep those discrete between the different objects in the group. So if you have one to be a light source and the other one not, because our shadow is not supposed to be a light source, it's a shadow. Our chandelier, we make that a light source, our shadow not. Then we group them, and that lighting will stay separate for them. So we've gone here several times for drop shadow, which we don't need on this one, because we actually have a shadow. We don't want to toggle shadows, which is making it opaque so that they can't see through it and light can't go through it. What we want to do is we want to go to this other option we haven't used yet, which is toggle object light. That you can literally see lights up the surrounding area around it. You can say how far. It's a chandelier, so 20 feet is not out of the question. So I'm going to say 5 squares. Now, over here is the color, so you can actually change the color of the light. And the other thing that's useful about this is when you notice the color is pretty dark here. That's on purpose because of how the lighting engine works in this. If I have 2 chandeliers that are close together, they'll start to really get a blown out look where you can't see the details of them or some objects around them. That's because the light's additive between the two. So to keep it from one chandelier from over-affecting light from another chandelier, because we're going to copy this here in a second, what you do is you just make sure that this, not the darkness of the object, but the darkness of the light that it's emitting is darker. So right now that's pretty dark, but we're just going to grab our yellows and notice that, like, see, look how it even increased the light. And see, it's actually already starting to get super bright there. What you want to do is you want to get that, the closer you get it down to black, that makes sure that the light doesn't overpower the other lights around it. It also does dim it down too. But you'll see that even with it down pretty low like this, it's going to look pretty good at night. So dim that down, confirm. And I'm going to move it over here. Nope, I'm not going to move it over there because I didn't group it with my shadow yet. I'm going to control click, group those. So now they're grouped. So now I'm going to move it over here. That looks good. Control C, Control V. I have this one over here. Now I got 2 chandeliers with shadows in a room. And yeah, they are lighting up. In fact, even if I click on it and move it around, you can see it's a big chandelier, so it's hard to see the light around it moving. So what I'm going to do over here on our tool area is I'm going to click the lighting, and it's midday right now. This is a sewer. It's going to be pretty dark. So you can darken it down. And now when you move it around, you can see the lighting, especially when it goes into another room. So you can see where the walls and where I haven't put doors yet, you can see where the lighting, you can see this door effectively blocks that light from coming into the room. So I'm going to put that back right where it was, and right there, our room's done. So I'm going to turn the lighting back up. I find it's easier just to build with your lighting at midday, and then change your lighting down later for any mood or immersion effects that you want. So let's do a little bit of sewer and play around with couple of different ways that we can do this. So first off, the way I'm thinking of doing it is I'm going to place whatever texture I'm going to have as being the lower texture first, and then I'm going to build the walkway texture second. And the reason why is because I want them to overlap so that I don't miss any type of area where you can see through the map. So let's go to our palette tool and let's go to floors. We got cobblestone or marble, stone tile. That stone tile might make a good walkway. The cobblestones might make a good floor. There was another place where I saw some floors too. I saw some other ones. Those are mine. Oh, we don't have to just have flooring, because that is flooring. There's a couple other places. Let's see, dungeon. That doesn't give us what I want. You can do straight up color. That's always fun. Nature might give us something what we want. So there's plain dirt. That cracked dirt could be a good bottom. So there's that. And there's rock. So we got flat up stone down here that we can use, including individual rocks. But this is our flooring rocks, which is kind of nice. Even some sand. So I keep thinking floor tile, but it's really ground tile. And there's more than just there's snow. You got a lot of things, stars. And those are actually objects on the terrain. So you can really play around with, and water. We'll probably come back to water here, maybe. Painting the water should be interesting. We'll see what we can do with it later. But I like rock here. Let's try this tile, city tile. See what that looks like. I could imagine that being the bottom of the sewer, because that's what we're painting here. We're painting the bottom. Actually, I'm going to zoom out for that because it's a lot easier to paint this when you're zoomed out, because you can just do big old swaths of this at once. So we're just going to do all that at once. You do all that. There we go. And again, click, control click, control click, control click. Oh, don't click again. There, grouped. Go to your object settings, turn down the opacity so that we can work on the other things. Yep. So the next step is how do we get our walkways in? So we decide what we want for our walkways. And again, we can go to our stone tiles here. We can go to our cobblestone. There was also that dungeon one. Where did we see that? So nature. Where was that one? It's not furniture, so let's just get furniture out of here. Is it under nature rock? No, that was... that. Don't need props. Terrain. That doesn't work good for painting. I've tried that one before. That's not very good. Miscellaneous. Some interesting ones. Decor. Nope. Hey, sewers. That's some serious sewers. Not what we're looking for. It's more of a repeatable one. So tile again. Ah, I lost that dungeon one. It's always the fun with having so much to choose from. Is that sometimes if you're not paying attention while you're looking for stuff, you kind of lose a little bit where it is. I think what we're going to do I really think we're going to go with just kind of a tiled cobblestone. That's pretty big. Seems like it'll be pretty big too. Oof, most of these are a lot bigger than what I want. Yeah, not that dungeon. It was a different thing. Let's go back down to terrain. Because there wasn't... didn't think I liked any of the ones in there. Those are some of the same cobblestones, but maybe... Let's give it a shot anyway. Okay, so what we want to do different here is, because if we just put it down tile... Oh yeah, that's not too bad. That's too big. Oops, don't think that's changed. Yeah, those are too big. If we just put it down tile, it covers up and it doesn't give the effect what we want. Because what the effect we want here is to get a side walkway. That's kind of too big. That's nice. I like that one. We have a winner. Ah! Control Z to save the day. Okay, so here is the tile that we want to use, which was cobblestone 2. Excellent. Okay. So how you get it down there so it doesn't take up an entire tile like this and covering up what you want to actually see is you select it, and instead of using tiled placement here, you can do brush, but brush, it's a round brush right now, and there's some negatives to that. I'm hoping in later releases they have different brush shapes, some polygon shapes of some sort, at least square. But what works best is actually the polygon placement. And I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do a section here for the time that we have. We're going to finish up on this. And the polygon placement is basically you place down points that are going to be the edge points around a polygon, and it automatically fills in this texture as a floor texture or ground texture everywhere inside your polygon. So how that's useful is that we click here and we click all the way down here, and then we click out. Now it's going to go to the right where your cursor is, or the center of this small little circle that you see of these circles. So I'm just going to go up here, and I'm going to do at an angle here. I'm going to do this angle for a reason. This actually will help later on for some things. But I'm going to click over here, and then that gets us out there to that edge. And then we're going to click right down to here. And then I'm going to right click saying I'm done. And there you go. And I did this as an angle because that lets you have corners really nicely, turning the corners. And you know, you're going to do another one that covers this way, so we'll really quickly do the one that's up here. And I don't need to cover the whole thing. I just need to cover where I'm going to be, which is pretty much, oop, that went all in a bad place because I was still in placement mode. There we go. Just click out 4 squares. Don't have to be perfect because, you know, this whole sewer looks like it's, you know, kind of imperfect anyway. So there we got our crossway. I'm going to right click, I'm going to select. Now I can move him to the bottom, but I don't want to yet. See, because he's kind of causes some overlap. Actually melded in quite nicely. Might not have to worry about it. Yeah, he melded in quite nicely, so I'm not going to worry about that. So we put the one up. Let's put the one up here and here, and then we'll have these 2 corners we're going to worry about here in a second. So let me just get those placed really fast. Doesn't take too long at all. Polygon placement. We're going to start about the same area, and I'm just right clicking on the map to drag to where I want to go. I put it right into the wall because I want overlap into the wall, and you'll see it on the I'm pointing again. You'll see it right here in this open doorway where we don't have a door. See, here we had the door, so that's on top of this ground tile, and you can see it's coming right out, and then the door will cover that up later. Yeah, it's pretty smart where it kind of blended these in very nicely. So it's a pretty powerful tool. So we get this other one over here, and we'll get these corners, and then we'll do these 2 corners down to show those. Then we're going to brush in a little bit of our water, and we'll end for the day. Let's get our cobblestone again. And the nice thing too is you can use different, as you go along, change the cobblestone that you use to show kind of change in the age of the sewer, as it were. So right into the wall, so we got that overlap right down to where we want that edge to be. Right into the wall. Well, actually, I want to stop here for a reason. And then I'm going to do angle up here. Well, technically, I should have gone like this. Delete that. So for what I want to do, actually, I do want to go straight into the wall there. And it's going to be a bit different than this one, and I'm going to show you why here in a second. It might not matter because it might blend in really well. This works for certain things where it doesn't work for other things. So if this is not needed in this case, I will show you a quick demonstration of why I'm doing that angle. So click, click right into the wall, and up here, and right click that I'm done. So I got the angled one, I got the non-angled one. So as we're going down here, we're going to click right into the wall, overlap it enough, and right about there. And so yeah, I didn't need to do the angle at all because you see it blends in perfectly. So my angle there isn't needed, which is fine because we're just going to take again our cobblestone and we'll just click it a little bit further up to make sure it covers it, down there, and done. And it even angles a little bit, so that's kind of cool. Kind of uneven, and I kind of like that. So we got our 2 sets of walkways. The angle thing is something that I do with roofs. I'll show you that real quick. You can have a roof that you have that is, you know, going along the roof, right? And then you have the roof rotated for going along the other way. And if you do that, see, it overlaps it, and you can see that it's a rotated tile, and that causes a problem that it doesn't look right. So then what I do is I'll do the rotated roof right down to here, or you can do it right down to the edge if you want to. But then I also do the rotated roof with a polygon placement, and I place it right on top of where our roof was so it blends in. But I'm going to take this one only to here, the corner. I'm going to take this one down to here to this corner, and I'm done. And then you got a peaked roof. And if you play with it, sometimes it lines up better than others. Maybe I should have done the rotated mirrored, that might line up better. But that's why I do the angle thing. If I delete that, let's do the rotation the other way. See if it makes a difference. And I'm gonna take this one all the way down to the corner. This one goes up to this corner, and then we go up to here, and we're done. And they're lined up actually a little bit better. So that's where I was doing the angle thing, is for lining up things like this. And even when you zoom out, at least you can see that it's the angle of two roofs. So it gives you a little more depth. Anyway, so finishing up here, we need to paint in some of our river. So first off, I'm going to take our grouped flooring there. So the controls are now down here. And we're going to make it so they're opaque again. There we go. I don't know if we can, I don't think we have, oh, we can do a drop shadow here. I don't know if that's going to help. Nope. I was hoping that would help, but it didn't. So I'd probably take something like a really thin wall and probably put along here to like kind of differentiate more. But this is a good start. So let's paint in some water. So I'll show you a different way to lay down. We even got some mud. Show you a different way to lay down objects or tiles. So you kind of select the water that you like. Kind of like this village tile 4. That looks pretty good. And that's set to tile, which is not what we want. But we do want something like this, where there's nothing on the edges, as opposed to like this, which if I plop it down, has these stone edges. So this is kind of a composite tile that they have. I don't want the stone edges because if I paint in, eventually I'll paint to where those cobblestone type edges are. And that is kind of a good sewer thing to put in here if you wanted green water and you wanted a wall. But this is kind of a more, we're making it as we go. So instead of tiled, which is not what we want to do, again, that's going to cover too much, we're going to select brush placement. And here we have a nice brush. So the first thing we need to change is our brush width, number of squares. So let's bring this right on down to, we don't even really have a square all the time there, so that's 5 feet. So let's bring it down to like 0.45 of a square. That's 0.40, just for, oops, that went the wrong way. Let me just use the drag. I don't care about it being exact. This is water, it's not a wall. Let's bring it down there. How's that look? Maybe probably a little thicker than we want for the piddly stream that's kind of coming through here. Okay, so we got that. And we're going to start by painting, our little stream. Now, you see here, it's got a little bit, if you'll notice, of brush softness. It's like really good soft brush, which is nice here. And because it's water, what I probably want to do is get rid of that and select my water. Nice and soft on the edge, definitely want that. But let's bring the transparency down a little bit. Now, 0 is opaque, 1's transparent. We don't want it like super transparent because we definitely want the nice blue of the water, but it'd be cool to see our cobblestones through it. Let's bring it down a little bit. Brush width still looks good. And you just paint in wherever you want the water to be. And if you want it thicker in an area, you make it thicker in an area. Like maybe it puddles a little bit when it's turning here. And you just bring your water down. You can see our cobblestones through it a little bit. And we bring our width down even more, and we kind of get, where it's going to be trickling out of here. And then we can even take a little bit of our mud and The mud here is more of an object, but we can still brush with it. And it has a density because this is going to be little objects as opposed to the water that we were putting down. So your object density, brush width, really, really small because it's just going to be on the side here a little bit. And you can just, wow, not like that. Okay, we're not going to try that one. That one seems bad. Sand could be pretty good because we could darken it down. That might be worthwhile. Let's give that a shot. Brush. It's nice and soft. Transparency. That's not going to be... Let's just give it a tad. And bring a brush width down really small here. And you can just kind of like brush along here, and don't even have to have it everywhere if you don't want to. And then that way you can take this, go to your light, go to your object manipulation here, and take your brightness down quite a bit. And you can even change your hue a little bit. But you get a little bit of a mud look now, just by taking the brightness down. So you went from sand to mud real easy. Get a nice little texture there. You can have different ones at different brightness levels. It's mud, it's not going to be consistent. So you can really play around with, how the edges are on this. And there were some other objects that they had in there that you could put flotsam and jetsam on this, but it really helps with it covers up the cobblestones a little bit and makes it feel like you kind of got the mud going up on the cobblestones a little. You could get some moss and sprinkle some moss in. A whole bunch of fun things that you can do there. But as you can see, even with me describing stuff, doing this one section right here, I've been here for an hour and a half on this stream. Not even all of it was painting in the dungeon. And, I was trying to explain and find things as I was going along. You can see that once you get used to this whole section here is only going to take like maybe 30 minutes, maybe less. And when you get going quick on this too, you're just doing walls. You can get all the walls put down real fast and then do all your sewer. And once you got an idea of how you do your sewer, going and adding to this is really quick. You can see where I got the base of it down everywhere. So then it's just an idea of, putting down your walkways. So it does go pretty quick once you get into it and really ends up having a fantastic look. And you bring your lighting down again to where it's night and you've got almost no light in your sewer and you only got light in your rooms. So bunch of fun things you can do with this tool. Really makes it immersive for your players. They really do tend to appreciate the work that you put into it. They'll bring more snacks next time or whatever it is. But it's a really fun way to add into your D&D group. Highly recommend this tool. It's a tool that I currently using and will continue to use for some times, and they're constantly building on it. Plus, they have an active Discord. There's other map tools out there as well. Some of them free, some of them cost. This is a cost tool, but seems to be fairly reasonably priced from what I can see. And I believe you can demo it, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, go out there, have more fun, play D&D. Play D&D remote, use those virtual desktops, those virtual tabletops, and just continue to be good to everyone. If you like what you saw, make sure you follow. I'm going to have this up on YouTube as well, so punch that subscribe button, punch that thumbs up where you can. Really appreciate it. Everything like that helps, and I will see you next time.